Welcome to the Ignite Us OLL podcast, where faith comes alive, stories inspire, and the Holy Spirit sets hearts ablaze. We're coming to you from Our Lady of the Lake Catholic Church in Mound, Minnesota, where everything we do is driven by our mission to light the fire of God, one heart at a time. Whether you're at home, on the road, or in between moments of quiet and chaos, we're so glad you're here. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and set aflame with truth and love. This is Ignite Us, and the fire is just getting started, one heart at a time. And we are back with Ignite Us. I'm Aurora, the host, and our co-host.
Hello.
And tonight, or wherever you're listening from, we have Jameson.
Hello.
And please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Jameson Smieja. I'm a member here at Our Lady of the Lake Church. Been a Mound resident for 14 years. Been probably an active member of the parish here. I've lost track, probably 8 of those years. Once our daughter got to the age where we realized we should probably be doing a better job going to a regular church somewhere, we committed to kind of coming here and made it our home. And I've been kind of around the parish, doing different things on and off throughout the years. Currently, I'm a member of the parish council, so I like to serve in that regard, try to help out with faith formation. I have a wife, Suzanne, and then 3 kids. My daughter, Presley's 14, and then a son, Price, who's going to be 10, and then a little guy who's 3. His name's Porter. So we stay busy chasing them around in different ways.
Any reason for all the P names?
No. Presley was a choice. Price, we had a couple options. One of them was a P, one of them wasn't. And then when we had Porter, we realized someone said, like, well, if you don't give him a P name, he might wonder why you don't love him as much as the other 2. So we fell in love with the name Porter, and that did it. So yeah, it just kind of happened. It was not planned that way.
Very, very fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so on these episodes, we are talking about deepening conversion. So maybe could you kind of tell us what either your day-to-day, faith walk is, or maybe what, if you've had some larger conversion story in your life, maybe the before and after?
Yeah. I'm actually kind of going through what I think is a big transformation right now. It feels big to me, but it's actually painfully slow. So I know when I got asked to come and talk, I was debating, do I talk about kind of a quick conversion of my youth where I'd fallen away and God steered me back. I think a lot of people have those stories I've learned over the years. Which is great, right? Because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those. But I'm honestly going through what I think is probably my biggest transformation. And so I know I mentioned this to you off the cuff. I don't know how conjoined my explanation is going to be because I'm in it right now. But it feels pretty big to me. So yeah, I'll just start. I think the big thing, at its core, was just kind of a restructuring of my priorities in life. And so, I don't know if I'm 3 or 4 years into what I would call this transformation. And I feel like there's going to be years left. But at one point, I realized, okay, I used to be really career-minded. when I graduated high school, my dream in life was to own a Lamborghini. Like I'll know I've made it when I have a Lambo. And so like that was like my goal. Oh, I'll be a CEO of a company or whatever. Like I'm pretty go with the flow. But like that was my star. Like make a lot of money and have a Lamborghini. What a stupid dream to have. But that probably fueled me, not like aggressively, but like that was my compass, right? Oh, make lots of money, right? Um, and so it was some years ago that somehow in, if it was talking with Father Tony at the time or, meeting with other Christian men or just having conversation, I got turned onto this book, which title I can't even remember. It was so long ago, but it taught me, hey, if you spend your energy and your time on your career right now while you're having young kids and think that you can come back when they're older, you're wrong. Like it doesn't work that way. Your kids need you now. And like, through the grace of God, I like realized that was epic wisdom and went, yeah, I mean, I get that. And that was kind of a major turning point, right? And then with that is the component of faith. So like I want faith to be a big part of my kids' lives, and I want faith to be a part of our family, and my wife and I to walk together in Christ and be that example for our children. And this story has lots of different like branches outward, but ultimately I realized as we got busier, having more kids, my wife works full time as well. Um, and so we both have kind of engaging careers or challenging careers. I realized like volunteering, if I have to prioritize my time, I've got to figure this out because there's lots of things that pull on my time. I could put more extra hours at work. I can spend it with my wife. I can volunteer with my kids' sports. I can serve in the church, those different things. I was on the planning commission for Mound for quite some time. So volunteering and serving there. And it just got to the point where we got so busy and it was getting to the point where I was trying to do too many things and my wife was trying to tell me like, it's too much. I need you more. Right. And so I just realized, well, hey, if I'm going to volunteer, what are my priorities? I need to know what that is, right? So, well, God at the top, right? And then, then my children, volunteering with my kids. So I kind of restructured my life in a little bit in that way and said, okay, priority wise, in my spare time, I'll serve the church, I'll serve my kids. And that worked for a while. It created stress. I tend to serve more than my wife does. So inevitably, if I'm serving, she's taking care of the kids, right? And then I was kind of driving us to OLL, like, hey, this is where we're going to go. I'm going to lead us to church. And what I wasn't hearing from her was that wasn't working, right? She was trying to tell me like, hey, you're gone doing this stuff. And then I'm home with the kids and I need more support or I need you here. Right. And I was thinking like a typical dude, or maybe I think a typical dude. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, like you'll get good at this. Other people do it, whatever, right? Such a stupid response. And I did that for years, honestly. And I kept whittling down to the point where it was like, okay, well, I'm going to serve in the church as little as I can, but I'll still help with my kids' sports. And then when we had Porter, it was like, that tipped it way over the edge because he's our most difficult child by a landslide. So I'd be volunteering with my daughter's softball team because now I've prioritized my volunteer work to just my daughter and a little bit at the church. And even then, it's like a lot for Suzanne to handle, understandably so. It is a lot. When I get left alone with that little guy, it's exhausting. And I just was doing that. And so that was, I just didn't know what to do with that. It's like, I don't, like, I'm supposed to serve God. I'm supposed to be in my kid's life. Like what, as an example here, like what do you want from me? Like what? And I just realized although I was trying really hard to be a good Christian man and a good Christian father, I never really understood until I started praying to God, just help me with this. I don't know how to fix this. Help me with this. And that was a big change. People talked about that, and I always knew about give it to God. And I would do that with like anxieties and things like that, but never like, hey, I have this challenge in my life. Only you can fix this, right? I don't know how to solve this problem. And it took a while, I prayed that I don't know how many times over the course of I don't know how long, a year more. And eventually it just finally clicked. I'm reading the Bible and I'm talking to and then I'm talking to a coworker and he says, well, you got to die to yourself every day, man. Okay. What does that mean?
Okay.
And then I talked to Father Peter, right? And Father Peter says, well, what did Jesus do for the church? He loved us, and what did he do? He died on the cross for us. He died for us. And that's when I finally started to put that together. And I don't know if it's in Ephesians. I'm not good at quoting the Bible, but where it talks about like the wife example, love your wife as Jesus loved the church and died for her, right? And died for us, right? Sorry for the terrible misquote, and it's just like, okay, I'm totally not doing it right now, right? And so I am who I am. My wife is who she is. We've come together to build this life together. And like, I am not trying to die to myself here and serve her in the way that she needs. And that was and that's like the big shift at the core. It's kind of the best example that I can describe the shift that's happening in my heart is, okay, how do I really give myself to this other person, to our marriage that I'm committed to, right? And it's just led to a lot of swallowing my pride, letting go of my ego, realizing that, hey, just because I think I want, deserve, quote, need something like like that, if it's not going to work for us, well, then I pray to God about it, and it goes away. I'm able to give those things up that, when I talk to other friends of mine, like they're not at that point in their faith journey. They don't understand that. They're still having those tensions. They're still having those struggles. And so that, to me, that's a big change that's rooted in something I've known from the Bible for a long time, but never really understood. And then that's starting to bleed into other things like, okay, I'm a steward of this life. This is not my life. This is God's life, and I'm a steward of it. Okay, well, what do you want me to do with it, Lord? And so that's a huge question, right? And so that's part of the journey I'm on, is wrestling with, okay, well, I don't know what you want. You tell me what you want, present what you want, and I will follow. And I'm just like trying to deal with the fact that like nothing's happened yet, and I don't hear it yet, but I'm living in that now, and trying to figure that out as well. So it's just a very different way to look at life for me right now, and that I didn't have like a year and a half ago.
Yeah. It does take time, and for the folks listening, these moments of transformation, it's like, yes, you can have like some big dramatic moment of conversion as part of the story, but honestly, the majority of people, the most normal thing is it happens over the course of a lifetime, is that people just grow and grow and grow and grow with their love in that relationship with Jesus. And kind of going back to what you said, about, that whole dying to yourself. I recently learned that, in the context of marriage, like what you were describing, is that, the one person dies to themselves, but then the other 50% of it, the other person is dying to their selves, so that you are constantly being supported by that love. And then it's this constant churning cycle and it's one of the greatest, physical examples of how God's love like churns basically how our relationship with him functions, and how, Christ, dying for us. And then in turn, we want to, as much as we can, die to ourselves and then, pour that love out into, we are called to be in the world and to, provide, and will the good of the other, in that love. So basically it's this beautiful cycle because it's like, first and foremost, God is love. And it's kind of that, that visual of, finding that.
And I think a quote that's quoted a lot is the Jesus saying, whatever you do to the least of them, you do to me. And I think that's just really, you're talking about how like volunteering and thinking of volunteering with your kids versus with the church and how do they overlap. And I feel like it's a lot more, it's not necessarily separate, it's if you're serving anybody, it's serving God, right? Like it doesn't have to be like an isolated thing. And I think that's a really cool kind of growth point, to realize that, serving your wife, for example, that's still serving God. It's the closest person to you. So it's all related.
It's your vocation. Like you are actively doing what God has asked of you, by doing, things for your wife, by caring for your family, because it is your domestic church. It is, first and foremost, this is like, as a man, it's like, as a married man, this is your, little church that you have built, and you are that, spiritual head of that family. So very, very much so. It's like, even if like you have to pull back on, like, let's say, you can't do faith formation, or it's like you need to step away from whatever council or whatever. It's like mainly it's like that little church of yours is, you are still serving God. So it's like folks who, maybe don't have the bandwidth or the time or, the ability to, serve, the church in like within our, big church, like, cinder block walls, or do we have cinder blocks, or are those bricks? I can't. Sandstone.
Cinder blocks inside the bricks.
Yeah. I'll have to ask Mike. It's like our was walls made out of, but it's like it's okay. It's like God will come to you, and in a lot of women's ministry as well, there's this phrase that God will come to us, that it's like men, they have to go climb a mountain, men, they have to like go to find God, they have to like go out and do something, like, and they'll be given all these rules, but it's like women, they're keeping the home, and they're with the family. It's like we have this special grace of God will come to you. So I think in a broader sense of it, it's like God also has that ability to come to where you are. It's like no matter where you are on this like journey, because again, it does take a long time. So I know it's frustrating, but sometimes it's like we just have to, play it where it lies.
To use a golf analogy.
Yeah. Play golf. I don't even. But it's like, play it where it lies, and God will come to you, and we'll get it back up on the green.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did I say that right? Okay.
As far as I know, you did.
Yeah. I'm going to stake my flag as the most qualified person to talk about golf on the table right now.
So. Okay, thanks, Coach.
You did good.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've been, I've had conversations, I think, with Father Peter and other like Christian role models in my life about just how impatient. I mean, I don't bring up the fact that I'm impatient, but I'm talking to them because I'm impatient. And it's just like that aspect of it for me, because I even before this transformation, the way I look at like Christianity and Catholicism is I read the Bible and be like, so am I supposed to walk away from my job and follow Jesus? Is that what you're trying to tell me, Lord? I already have a wife and kids. But I guess some people left their families. Is that what you want from me? And then my brain would go to like, what does it take to get into heaven? Just tell me what it takes so I can do the thing. Right? And that's how, and then so I was approaching it with like, well, give me a clear answer and then I'll just go sprint to that and then I can be like done, I've made it. I don't have to worry about it anymore. I'm objective oriented, right? Like give me the objective and I'll go attack it. That's not how it works, right?
No.
Like,
yeah. You can't optimize salvation.
Oh, but my brain
checklist.
My brain wanted to, though.
Yeah.
It really did. And I think until I really started like understanding or hearing, like, you gotta really give your life to God, and you really gotta, be a steward of this life. And, I still don't fully understand, like, well, when I think, oh, give your life to God, I'm like, well, I see how they're giving their life to God, and I see how they're giving their life to God, and they're doing way more than I am. Am I supposed to get to that state? It's like, look, if I'm supposed to get to that state, it'll become clear to me at some point. Like right now, I'm playing it where it lies. I've got 3 kids, a mortgage, and it's not like I can just cast my income aside and go to a monastery, right? Like that's not going to work. That's not probably a Christian thing to do to my family, right? And so it's going to be a process to move to something different if that's what the Lord wants for me. And maybe He just wants me to be the best Christian role model at my current place of employment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but in the moment, that's what I should be doing, because it's pretty clear that, that's what we should do, from what Jesus taught us, right? Or what the Bible teaches us. So it's just really, I still wrestle with that impatience.
Mm-hmm.
And then have to remind myself to play it where it lies and just pray to God to like, hey, help me, again, help me do what you want me to do today.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's really easy to get lost in like comparing, especially when you see somebody, you're like, yeah, that's great. Whatever they're doing great. They have it. The truth is nobody ever is like, yeah, I've got it figured out. And I think I'm not saying this because I am like, yeah, check, I've got this mentality figured out and we're doing great. Cause I remind myself of that all the time, but it's everybody's on their own path, and there's, however many billion people on earth, because we're all different, and, nobody's going to have the same path, and nobody can do the exact same things as another person, because that'd be really boring and we would have a lot of empty spaces that need filling.
Yeah.
And that's just hard, especially when you aspire to someone specifically, but you can't be that person because they're that person. So.
It's fun to hear you say that, because I like, seeing the beauty of God in like the design of creation and the design of the earth, and yet how unique every person is. And I never really thought about, so I understand how unique we all are and see that as evidence of God, right? Because how else statistically can you have that many people and we all be so different, and there's not somebody just like me, that I haven't run into already, right? But I never really thought about, well, yeah, and that kind of helps explain why probably not all going to end up on the same journey either. Or,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I don't know the word I'm looking for. That's a pretty enlightening thing to say. So I'll give you that.
Mm-hmm. I try.
But I do think, back to trying to die to myself, and you mentioned like, there's all kinds of different ways to serve. That is like trying to serve my family in this moment, is what I'm hearing I'm supposed to do. And so I did have to let go of the pressure to serve more at the parish, the pressure to coach, to be my daughter. And that's hard, because letting go of coaching her meant less time with her, but she's getting to the age where, I'm not really qualified to help her anyway. But it does make me infinitely more available and focused on, the bigger picture of what my family needs, and drives why, I still want my phone face up on this table. So if my wife does need me, I'm not just completely unavailable, right? Like I don't do those things anymore that I was doing a couple of years ago. And frankly, to like kind of fit the mold of what, men, I don't know. I don't know if this is the secular view or like the societal view of what men are supposed to be like, but like going on week-long fishing trips and, climbing the mountain to find myself, it's like, oh, well, that's what men are supposed to do. And so I should be able to do that. Again, it's not really what my family needs from me right now. They don't need me to climb a mountain to go find myself. They need me present and available to support, because it's just a really hectic time in our lives right now. And so I've had to kind of walk away from, well, this is normal and this is what I should be doing and we just need to get used to it, and causing more problems.
Mm-hmm.
I was causing more problems trying to like jam our family into the mold that I thought society said was fine.
Mm-hmm.
And instead I've come back into this, no, I'm just going to try and be there. And that's how I'm going to represent Christ, right? Is I'm just going to be there to support and love my family. And I'm not perfect. Yelled at my daughter this morning over something stupid and was like, I probably could have handled that way better. And I'll have to talk to her about that later, but like it all comes back to, well, how do I even know that I should be doing better? It's because of my relationship with God and what he's telling me through, the Bible and homilies and Christian music and the mentors that I'm seeking out, because I want to be focused more on him. Right. So it's a pretty big shift, at my core. And I'm just, I'm, hopeful that there's, I don't even let go of like, well, maybe there'd be good fruits for me at the end of this, right? Like, if I'm a good Christian guy, then, God will shower me with graces. It's like, I have to let go of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, cause then anytime that didn't happen, it would like poison the well a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, you know what? It's very clear what he wants me to do. And so I'm just going to keep trying to do that and have faith that I'm on the path, right?
Yeah. And like you mentioned, it's like one of the important things is like to be there, and something that, tugged at my brain when you said that was, the presence of the importance of being there. And, now we're in this era in the as a Catholic Church in the United States, we're having this revival of, the Eucharist and, the true presence. And people are really starting to come back and find that in the presence and just being there within the orbit of the true presence of Jesus, their relationships, number one, their relationship with Jesus is getting better because, you're there, but also relationships with, other folks in their lives are also improving, because again, it, like what you said previously, is that the whole, being present, it's, impacting people's relationships, and improving that, and people making the decided decision to show up in those relationships. Because so often than not, people don't know how to develop a relationship with Jesus, because I come from an evangelical Protestant background where very much so we were taught very early on to, read the Word of God and develop this kind of like interpersonal communication with our Lord. And so I'm very used to, just charismatically like speaking with God and just being comfortable in this. But I've found that, some folks who, grew up in the more quintessential like Catholic tradition, like sometimes like they just don't have that. Like they went through all of the motions and the steps, but they have to do a little bit more legwork to just kind of discover and learn how to, have that basis of communication. And develop that relationship. So, and to have a decent relationship, you have to be present. Like, I mean, as a husband and as a dad, you understand this. It's like to, have those solid relationships, you got to be present. And that's just kind of a through line that I'm hearing as you talk about, the folks in your life and kind of how you make decisions. It's like, how do I show up? How do I be present for, this person and these people and, everyone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think what you were talking about earlier with not just being present, but like holding yourself accountable within your presence, of when you're saying how, you yelled at your kid for like a stupid reason. You're like, well, I have to go talk to her about that. And, I think that's super important too, because yeah, you were present, but maybe not in the best way, and being able to and show her, oh, that was, I could have done that better. But being present in that is also a learned trait from being present and accountable with God too. Like it's all related. And I think that's another point of really cool growth, to be able to recognize both sides of that. Just the presence, but also specifically how you're being accountable in that presence. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and and to that point, one thing that's jumped out in my mind, and I don't know if this is like statistically true or not, but there have been moments in my life where I don't know that I doubt that I would have been able to humble myself enough or let go of my ego enough to come back and do the right thing if it wasn't for, my relationship with God and the living word. Because, I believe, it's just my thought, that that's part of the problem with society today that has fallen away is I can now understand. There's been enough turmoil in my family already that it's like I can understand why people walk away. I can 100% understand why it gets to the brink of, you know what, this is too hard, or I'm a failure, or there's no point in trying anymore, whatever. I have some of that in my family, right? Where, marriages they fall apart. Relationships with kids break apart, and I'm really cautious even talking about this because I don't want to like jinx myself, right? It's like I don't know I still got a lot of time left to screw this up, but I believe that because of my relationship with God and hearing what He's saying, through the living Word, that no, those aren't options. Those dying to yourself is the option, right? Like we're back to that, right? It's like, no, if I don't, and I think if I didn't know or hear that, I believe there's a good chance I would have just given up on things too, or just said, this is who I am, and this, I guess it's fine, or whatever thought process, or been eternally feeling guiltful rather than no, okay, the right thing to do is to be Christ-like here, right? And so that I think has been a big anchor. I think it's Maggie Sartori said, like, it's a truth that I've been grounded into, which has served me really well. And I, thank God for that. And again, I have faith and hope that as long as I stay grounded in that truth, I'll be able to make it through hardships, that maybe other people, it just becomes too hard. So again, I don't know if that's real or not, if there's any real theology or statistics to back any of that up, but that's been my life experience is, man, I don't know how people weather through this stuff without God in their life. It feels like it would be impossible.
Like you can survive it, but it makes it so much harder.
Yeah.
Like, at least, when I, experienced turmoil or suffering, like we had a death in the family last year. Actually, we're coming up on the anniversary of it on March 1st. But the way God worked and the way He brought our family together before that, we were prepared. We were being prepared in our relationships and, our communication and being able to, be with each other so that when that, death did happen, we weren't alone and we didn't have to handle, logistics, or we didn't, just in our grief as well, we were able to, just sit and be with each other in those periods of time. So I've just been so grateful and blessed that that it worked out that way in God's eternal wisdom.
Yeah. Right. Right. And that I've always kind of felt that way, like, God, He has a plan, and that I have, I'm not going to name any specific experiences, but times like that where it's like, oh, there was God, right? There He was, right? Like we were more prepared for that, or, this past experience that we went through made us ready for this other one, and how would we have been able to handle that without that? That's His plan, The other thing that I feel like I'm learning is, so I don't know if it was Father Peter or Deacon Richards said in a homily, that, there's the old saying, what, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. And he's like, oh no, maybe that's not true. And forgive me if I'm quoting the wrong people, but it was a pastor who said, that's not true. It's God does give you more than you can handle so that you turn to him.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like, okay, like I get that, right? Like I get that. But as that's marinated with me, I've realized like, oh, well, so when something gets really hard and I pray, I feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, oh, so now here's that joyful Christ-like light, Christ-filled light that people talk about. I'm not going to be like at the front of the church clapping and raising my hands, but like something bad can happen and I can lean into God. And then I'm not living in the sorrow and the mess anymore, or whatever, the anger, all of that. And like, that's a really powerful thing. Like that, again, I didn't know existed, a year ago. Right. And so and so that really that dependence on prayer and again, leaning back onto God, that's just another way that it's presented itself. And we haven't had any like recent deaths in our family, but so, I haven't tested it in that kind of scenario, Aurora, but, we'll see, it's a powerful thing to have God to lean on.
So we're kind of coming into the later part of the episode. So, is there anything that, from being informed from, your walk with Jesus and your experiences, is there anything that you want to share with parishioners here or, things that you've learned or, what do you want to tell the people?
All of the stuff I just said, I don't know. Wasn't that why I was saying all the things I just said? I mean, be patient, right? I think that to me will probably always be a lesson that I have to keep reminding myself of. And that, they talk about unanswered prayers on KTIS all the time, and they talk about answered prayers, and it's easy to be like, oh, how come my prayers don't get answered? No, theirs do. But over time, they do get answered. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you don't know how long, you don't know when, but just keep doing it. Keep leaning into him. And I think too, hey, when something's hard, lean into him and ask him what he wants and what his plan is and for his help. And then let it play out, play it where it lies from there. And it's kind of amazing how freeing that is, because you really do then let go of control, that you honestly don't even really have. Right. So that's that. And, yeah, I mean, and keep Christ at the center, right? Like why are we doing anything on this earth, right? It's that steward of your life aspect, which again, I haven't fully figured out at all, but I really think that's something big, that this is not my life. I'm just a steward of this life. That changes perspective immensely. In all of that. So, and again, then, okay, so I'm supposed to live this life the way Christ wants me to live it, not the way the world says it should be, or my buddies say it should be, or other couples make it look like it is, right? It's like, no, it's what's God saying. And where do we find that? Through the scripture, through mass, through prayer, the Eucharist, adoration, right? Being in the presence. And so you try and fill your life with as much of that as you can. And then I think that's when he speaks to you. Does that make any sense?
That's a great answer. I like
that. Yeah, I like that. Well, thank you for coming on the show.
I appreciate you having me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hello everyone, I'm Aurora Fenzl, Communications and Technology Systems Manager for Our Lady of the Lake Catholic Church. I'm the podcast host and editor. To support us, you can like, follow, share, and subscribe, and also visit us at ourladyofthelake.com. for our Mass times and ways to support our mission.